Sports talk will never be the same again.
Seriously, Jeb, stop laughing.
I mean, have you heard this guy?
This is the Raw Mike Richards Show, brought to you by Cassock Wealth Management, CIBC Wood Gundy, on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
Hey, welcome back as we are broadcasting once again during an Olympic week, and this time not in Costa Rica, but where we normally are in our CIBC Wood Gundy Cassock Wealth Management Studios. We have Pierre McGuire to talk about Olympic hockey, and that got a little dicey. It is such a different experience when you talk about international hockey, and boy, it makes the heart pound. It reverts you back to a purer time when, I don't know, I wasn't gambling when you're watching it for more or less the purity of the sport. And when it comes to best on best hockey, when you have a tournament like this, it really brings, the passion to the forefront. And certainly at the time of the recording of this show, the Czechia game was all you pretty much wanted to handle. So we'll talk to Pierre McGuire about some of those issues. And our good friend, Paul Romanek, longtime play-by-play guy. In fact, his voice is in the Hockey Hall of Fame for that sport. And no one has done really almost as many internationally significant games over the years. I mean, he must have done the World Juniors at least 10, 11, 12, maybe more times in a row. He has seen it all, and he's been to many places to see it. So we'll talk to our good friend Romy about what he saw, but just the heart-pounding nature of what it's like to cheer for our country as Canadians. And I got to be honest, it was even a little more intense or special being in a Caribbean area. I mean, there you are in, quite frankly, Central America. That has a nice feel to it, doesn't it? It's a little weird first time traveling there. Well, who's your neighbor to that side? Nicaragua? Huh. And who's over there? Panama, followed by Colombia. That felt really safe. I know I'm just being a dick, but I'm just saying it's just a little weird when normally the person beside you is from like Balzac. So it's a little different. Tons of Canadians and everyone sort of slightly paranoid about what the team would do. And how about, and again, the weirdness of a hockey game against France, which to me is always weird enough, but a hockey game against France that featured a fight. Well, kind of. It was more like Jello wrestling when you got down to it. And Tom Wilson, I know he wanted a chunk of that guy, but the nature of the way the fight was, it wasn't really what we would consider a hockey fight. Not when one guy's tossing the gloves off and the other guy's doing what I believe you would call a nipple twist. I don't know what he did. All of a sudden, Tom was down on the ground. I didn't know who was fighting. But did the guy from the French hockey program, however significant that is, I really wouldn't know, to banish him for the rest of the tournament from that? It was self-imposed. I really wouldn't have liked his chances on the best of days. Fighting Tom Wilson, but the way that the fight went, it wasn't to me the sort of thing that would say, "You're through, you're banished from French hockey." The guy's probably smoking, going, "Okay, whatever, it's French hockey. I'm not hockey in France." How significant is that? I don't know. But it's just the strangest of the tournament. And of course, what Suzuki did, and seeing Sidney Crosby go out, and for Leaf fans, seeing Mitch Marner do what he did. I'm sure that wasn't painful at all. You're watching Raw Mike Richards and listening to Raw Mike Richards right here on Sportsnet 960, The Fan. The other thing is, I realize sometimes there is maybe a lack of appreciation on certain events because of, people would say, age. But at any point, even when it came up in the quote-unquote younger days, snowboarding is just something that I just don't have a real affinity for. The snowboard cross is kind of cool. I think they probably should give them weapons, but that's just me. But it seemed like when I was watching it, so was it me, or did 50% of at least I was watching the women snowboarding, they didn't make it down. Like, look, again, it's not something I'm familiar with. I don't really get the terms. I believe our Canadian girl who's in all the ads, I want to say Sally someone, they say, well, her stance is goofy. I thought, well, Okay, so it's not just me saying it. No, apparently that is the technical term for the stance they use in snowboarding. I think that says it all. If one of the moves you can make in the sport is called goofy, you got to really rethink it. And let's really be honest about that particular event. There might be just a little too much, I don't know, weed blowing to get into it, or maybe to like it. Is that the genesis of the sport anyway? Couple of weed blowers, guys, blowing branch, and someone says, you know what? We probably don't need like 2 pieces of wood. Let's get rid of the poles and let's just use one. So it's like surfing on snow. Right on, Ross Rebliati. Where's Ryan Wedding? Oh, don't worry. He's got snow of another kind. Ah, ha, ha, ha. I don't get it. It's not my thing. Again, at the time of recording, I don't know exactly where our Canadian men are going to fall. Even should they get through that gold medal game, at times they have looked really good. And again, we will talk to Pierre McGuire this morning about like who looked good. And for those who aren't necessarily, is this going to be something that hinders you in a short tournament? You can maybe spin your wheels at the first part of this tournament. Doesn't mean that's how the tournament will be for you. So I'm crossing my fingers on this one. And as I said, we'll also talk to Paul Romanek about his great moments calling, some of the huge moments in international Canadian hockey.
After 5 shooters each, this game was still tied. So Luc Robitaille came in to shoot for Canada. And he scores this time. Robitaille. So now Finland has a shooter, Esa Keskinen, and he has to score on Bill Ranford to keep Finland alive in this game. There it is! It is over! Canada, world champions!
Yes, there's also another tournament we can talk about. That's our good friends at DKI Calgary. Our good friend Lori, we're going to talk about this right here, right now. We're going to talk about May the 1st to the 3rd. It's not that far away now. And of course, it is Puckapalooza. It is the annual charity classic in support of Ronald McDonald House Charities. And again, there's so many opportunities for sponsorship and companies to be involved. So, they understand that without the support of local businesses, the event isn't possible. So it is really important that we get the community involved, including the different kinds of sponsorship. There's a top shelf sponsor. There's a bar down sponsor. There's all pricing on that. You go to puckapalooza.com. You can find out this slap shot sponsor, the one-time sponsor. And again, there's also raffles. There's different ways you can participate aside from just being in the tournament. There's raffles. And then, of course, the all-important lounge sponsor, which, of course, you'll find me on that weekend because anything DKI Calgary wants to do, they can count me in. Now, is there a disaster of the week? Oh, yes.
It's the sports disaster of the week.
Okay, so it's kind of like this. I get it when we do the DKI Calgary disaster of the week. I can be a bit of a knob, not that complimentary towards some people, others. Not having a sensitivity towards feelings. It's called Raw Mike Richards for a reason. You know the show you're listening to. You know the host. But here's the one thing I think is a disaster, not only of the week, but a continuing disaster. And I just don't know why we do it. And yes, it does pertain to the Olympics. Do we have to interview the girls when they have a devastating score, like just seconds after a figure skating fall? They do a triple knickerbocker or whatever that goes into they go into the glass. There's a lot of crying in the sport sometimes, but these people have dedicated their entire lives. They go to bed early. They never had a cheeseburger. They never had a Ryan Ginger. These people, they sacrificed everything that they had. And for 4 years they do this, or 8 or 10 or whatever it is. They've been skating since they were a fetus. And then they get out there and they do a triple hooperberry. And then they fall, and then the announcers are like, oh, like this Maddie Skizis who falls down and or has a little bit of a rough ride, and then she's crying, she's bawling her eyes out, and then you get some no-name reporter from the CBC, some spare going up and saying, are you disappointed? What? Can you explain how you feel? How am I feeling? Don't you see my beautiful loon outfit? I was dancing to Minions, and then I dropped the candle, and it's heartbreaking. Like, it's, anyone who's a parent, it just your heart just breaks watching these poor girls, these women who have trained so hard, and yet it's always there, and then they always think it's better by just lowering their voices. I'm sorry, Maddie. Are you sad because you were terrible? We don't need that. Just, is there a way around it, or can we not talk like it's the 17th hole on Augusta? So I noticed that there seems to be a little blood from the nostrils. Is that because you're a crappy skater? Were your parents divorced when you were young? I really think that, to me, the disaster is, let's just not, because we had another, the woman that was like 57 or whatever she was, who went flying into the boards after Igor flipped her into the glass, and then we're talking to them. Let it go. Let them cry, because that's one sport where crying's kind of good. See, and then I turned into a dick again. We're going to talk to Pierre McGuire. What's going on with this hockey? Because let me tell you something. There is nothing more entertaining than this. It is fabulous theater.
Raw Mike Richards will be right back. Brought to you by Cassock Wealth Management, CIBC Wood Gundy.
For over 40 years, Calgarians have trusted DKI Calgary when disaster strikes. From fires and floods to legendary hailstorms, our all-star team delivers rapid response and proven restoration excellence to residential and commercial customers. As the premier restoration provider in Calgary and Southern Alberta, we're the partner families, businesses, insurers, and property managers count on. When the unexpected happens, trust experience. Trust DKI Calgary, restoring homes, businesses, and peace of mind for more than 4 decades.
Whoa, I gotta put some money on the game tonight. We hit our monthly budget. Whoa, how did you get in here? I'm you, the responsible you. We're right. We'll play another time. Sounds more like us.
If you gamble, use your game sense. Visit GameSenseAB.ca.
Your financial future deserves personalized support. At Cassock Wealth Management with CIBC Wood Gundy, we use a data-driven approach that takes the emotion out of investing to help you stay on track towards reaching your goals. Whether you're growing your portfolio, planning for retirement, or preserving your legacy, our experienced team can provide you with the customized solutions and trusted guidance you need to succeed. Call us at 403-508-3230 or visit our website, www.cassocwealthmanagement.com.
Brought to you by Milan Cassock, investment advisor with CIBC Wood Gundy. CIBC Wood Gundy is a division of CIBC World Markets Inc., a subsidiary of CIBC.
This is the Two-Man Advantage with Pierre McGuire on the Raw Mike Richards Show. Brought to you by Spalumbo's Fine Food and Deli. Food made with love for the people you love in the heart of Calgary.
As you know, it is that time, Two-Man Advantage, brought to you by Spalumbo's Deli. And of course, at the time of the recording, and this is the thing about not doing sports live, we're sort of looking at what happened what could possibly happen with our good friend Pierre McGuire, who's doing the Olympics for NBC, which is just awesome. But my friend, I want to bring something that did happen, which I thought was funny. The moment the first broadcast of the very first hockey game that comes on, I'm a goalie. So I'm looking at the boards going, whoa, 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 whoa. You can't have that cover. You can't have that color. You can't have, and I guess apparently they have made that adjustment, but I was a little surprised that kind of got under the radar a little bit to start the tournament off.
Well, everything kind of was off from the start of the tournament because they didn't have the rink ready. Think about that for 1 second. And, they've kind of covered it up pretty good, but people from the IOC, people from the organizing committee in Milan, people from the NHL, people from the NHLPA, they dropped the ball. Somebody dropped the ball because the rink wasn't ready. Look at the dressing rooms that all these teams are in. And I'm not making excuses for anybody, but that looks like something you would see at a Sunday morning pickup game. And that's not how we want the best athletes to be treated. I know all the other sports aren't being treated that way. They made a mistake. They miscalculated. It's all good. Now, I'll say this. Yes, the boards were dark. Yes, Jeremy Swayman got beat from center ice. But all the NHL rinks you go into, there are a lot of lower bowls with dark seats too. So I'm not gonna give him the night off on that one. He miscalculated. He wasn't ready. He didn't track the puck very well. Good thing for the Americans, it didn't really hurt them. They were able to win the game, and they and Canada are the only two undefeated teams going into the quarterfinal.
So let's follow up on that. Let's follow up on the American team because, again, distance and time and so on. Maybe not everyone's seeing the games, and it is a tournament, which means sometimes you spin your tires a little bit. You're not on the same page. And it seemed like they were going through maybe a little more of that than I had perceived. Now, is that just perception as a Canadian hockey fan, or is there some tires spinning on the U.S. team, at least in the start of it?
I would say the first couple games there was. I'd say in the third game there wasn't. They were more like what they want to be. Austin Matthews is starting to get some chemistry with Jake Gensel and Matt Boldy. The Kachucks with Jack Eichel's a formidable line. It really is, Mike. Dylan Larkin's become a very good depth center iceman. He understands his role. They need a little bit more offense out of his line with Clayton Keller and Tage Thompson, but they got to play more too, Mike. They're not playing Tage Thompson enough. And then I think the most underrated player in this whole tournament is Brock Nelson, the fourth center for the United States. So we'll see how it translates into the playoff round. Obviously, the Americans with a tough quarterfinal matchup with Sweden. But you're right. The one strength this team has, though, their mobility on the back end, their ability to break down the forecheck, and their ability to manufacture offense from their defense. Mike, they're the best team in this tournament right now, manufacturing offense from their defense.
Now, a lot of people are feeling after you've seen some of Canada's power, and you know when it flexes, it just shows you how deep that team can be. And if they get goaltending, it's a real uphill battle. Are they that good? Do you think? I mean, have they reached their potential, or is it because it's such a short tournament? You know, it's tough to get after it early, and it's hard to tell where that ceiling is.
Boy, they're really good up front. It's hard to say that there's been a better Canadian team up front than this team ever. And I'm going back to 87, which is probably a good reference point. The best line Canada ever had, I think, internationally was Lemieux, Gretzky, and Michel Goulet in 87 and Hamilton. I was there in 2010. You know, I remember the Mike Richards line with Jonathan Toews and Rick Nash. Unbelievable line. But they won that tournament on their two Hall of Fame goaltenders, Brodeur and Luongo. And look at all the Hall of Famers on the back end. You had Chris Pronger, you had Scotty Niedermayer. You know, you had a murderer's row of guys in the back end with that 2010 team in Vancouver. This team's really good, Mike. We all know that. I don't think we've ever seen a more dominant line, though. When they put McKinnon, McDavid, and Celebrini together, Mike, I don't know if we've ever seen a better line anywhere in hockey. It's just even the KLM line. I don't even know if they were better than these guys.
You know, Celebrini and the penalty shot and just sort of his moments. I think I'm enjoying watching his parents as much as I'm watching him play because it reminds me of those brick tournaments, you know, they'd have in Edmonton, or the Silver Stick, you know, where you saw the young phenom and you see the parents. It still kind of has that feeling, and that's probably not that far behind him when you consider how young he is. It's kind of like that.
I had the honor of watching my son play in the Brick tournament, and I watched him play in the Quebec Pee Wee tournament. And you're so right. You're so right. And I remember the first game my son's team played, it was against the LA Kings team, and their best player was Josh Doan, who's in the National Hockey League. And both coaching staffs figured it out. You know, they played my kid against Doan's kid, and it was like, and Shane and I were sitting up top in the mall in Edmonton watching, and eventually the game ends up 2-2. And Donor's boy scores both goals for his team, and my guy scores both goals for his team. And it's to your point, we're sitting there watching it going, this is really special. And here we are all these years later. Both guys are playing pro hockey. You know, one's in the National Hockey League. My guy's not there yet. We'll see if he makes it or not. But it's just amazing, to your point, the parents. And so I know what the Celebrinis are going through. This is an unbelievably meteoric rise for this kid. He's always been good. I watched him practice at BU. I watched him play at BU. He was spectacular there. But to be where he is now, Mike, this is special stuff. It really is. It's Crosby-esque. It's Lemieux-esque. It's Gretzky-esque. This kid's really special.
We're in conversation with Pierre McGuire. The segment is called Two-Man Advantage, brought to you by Spalumbo's Deli right here on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Raw, Mike Richards. You know, a lot of people are making sort of comment of the, I don't know if you'd call it physicality, but when it got a little physical with the team from France, and you know, it was such a strange circumstance. First of all, I'm watching hockey in Costa Rica, so that was weird. That was weird enough. And then when the guy wanted to mix it up with Tom Wilson, when the fight starts, the French guy does something that we don't. When we we throw our gloves when we're going to fight. You look at me, I look at you. The gloves come off. As the gloves come off, he sort of like a wrestling move, kind of hauls him down from his chest, which I don't think he was expecting. Which is why it wasn't really quite a hockey fight as we know it. But for that kid in France, like. He probably figured this was, gets to go home in some small, I don't know, French town or whatever, and he's famous for the rest of his life and his family because he fought an NHL guy. I don't know what that's like. It was a strange moment.
Yeah, it wasn't just a run-of-the-mill NHL guy either. It was Tommy Wilson, who's a pretty tough hombre. I know a lot's been made of it. I know the French Association decided to kick the kid out of the tournament on their own. I don't understand that. I feel badly for him. It really wasn't a hockey fight. It was a wrestling match, and he knew it was coming after the hit that he put on Nathan McKinnon.
Right.
He knew it was coming. I mean, he's not a soft kid. You got to be a strong kid to throw Tommy down the way he did. All that being said, I think the France team and the Italian team deserve a lot of credit. They were way overmatched for this tournament, and they caused some heartache. They didn't win any games, but they caused some heartache. They played hard. They played well disciplined. They really competed. They just didn't have enough firepower. But I thought both those coaching staffs, both for Italy and for France, did really good things with the types of players that they had, Mike.
To me, what stands out, and this goes back to years when we used to have hockey exchanges with Switzerland, and there were times I played an exchange with a Swedish team. Although I'm going to put certainly Switzerland and Sweden in a completely different category in terms of where they were chronologically and how they play. And we know what happens. We talk about Switzerland, where a lot of expats who had gone over there. Mike Richard, who was someone that was like a family friend, went over there and played very, very early, and had a son Tanner who also played for the program. But the skill set on some of these teams, like you see Denmark and even France, their skating, like some of the technical aspects of the sport itself, are just so much better. If you go back probably, a decade, maybe not even, and look at how they would stop, how they would start, how they'd come out of their own zone, what we used to call power skating, the actual from the core where the skating comes from. These countries, Pierre, are pretty good. This isn't the guys skating on their ankles anymore and not sure where it's going to go. They don't have the stamina. They don't have the strength. They don't have the finishing skills. But Pierre, the level of hockey to me is shockingly good.
You're so right on, Mike. They're catching up in a hurry, all these countries, which is a good thing for hockey, not a bad thing. The country that really needs to get going, because it's such a great winter sport country, is Norway. You look at Denmark's producing players because a lot of those guys go and play in Sweden. Sweden's always produced players. Finland's producing players. Germany's starting to really produce players. It's so good to see the Slovaks back playing as well as they have. They've moved on to the semifinal. I'm so happy for their programs. Spent a lot of time in Bratislava, spent a lot of time in Košice, spent a lot of time in Prešov. These are cities close to Ukraine, and I've spent a lot of time there watching hockey players. And I got to tell you, I'm so happy for the people from Slovakia. I really am. They love hockey there. They love it. Czech's on their way. Czechia's on their way. So to your point, it's really good to see the development, especially in France, a non-traditional hockey country, Italy, a non-traditional hockey country, Austria, a non-traditional hockey country. Switzerland is now becoming a traditional hockey country. The development all around the hockey world is awesome. A lot of credit to expats who played over there and are coaching over there, and a lot of credit to the NHL. The NHL's given some backup to these programs, which is a really positive thing too. So I'm really encouraged. As somebody that knows expansion is coming in the NHL, we need more players. And we're going to have more players, and there's not going to be a talent deficit because of all these countries that are starting to produce players.
And finally, Pierre, again, as I sort of reiterate, as this is different for certainly for me when you do a program that is not live daily, and you have to be very careful when doing sports like this. For instance, the women's tournament will be over by the time this show airs. But I thought it was just sort of interesting how the tournament starts. Certainly for our women's program against a U.S. team in terms of the women's program. Where would you rank this in terms of their better teams that they have had for Team USA?
Oh, this is the best team they've ever had. I've been around it since 2002. The 98 team, I would say half those young women, I actually coached in hockey camps in the mid-'80s, so when they were probably 8, 9, 10 years old. Then they go to the Olympics in 98. So I knew the team, even though I wasn't in Nagano at the time. But then you look at what's gone on since 2002. This is probably the best American team I've ever seen. And it starts on defense. Caroline Harvey is a phenom. She's not just a little bit good. She's really good. She's one of the best female players I've ever seen. She dominates a game. I know people have used it comparable to Bobby Orr. I'm not even going there.
No.
I'm going to tell you right now, she reminds me a lot of Paul Coffey. I had the honor of coaching Paul. She skates very similar. She moves a puck like him. She's not afraid to jump in at all times. She's quick enough to get back defensively like Paul was. She's an amazing player. Layla Edwards, she shoots the puck as hard as any woman I've ever seen. So I can go down the line but the American depth and their speed through the neutral zone, we have never seen that from Olympic women ever before what the Americans have right now.
Pierre, before I let you go, I'm just curious, you having covered even this event for years and years, what do the players get out of it when they come back to their teams? I mean, they're going back to get into their regular routine. They're going all over North America, the professional athletes. And of course, I get it. I get the dollar figure they make, so people always want to put a heavy emphasis on that. But does it change them? Do you think being on a national team like this and representing your country and playing for the Olympics in even a venue that's small and weird colored boards and the dressing rooms aren't quite the same, but what do you get when you go back? Do you think it changes them at all? I do. I think it changes them a lot. I look at Christopher Pronger and his Olympic escapades in a positive way. It made him an unbelievable leader. It really did. I look at Jonathan Taves after 2010. You win the gold medal, and then you win the cup in 10. You win the cup in 13. You win the cup in 15. Mike, he's the leader of the team. I can go down the line. So many good players that have evolved. I'm watching Leon Draisaitl now. They've been eliminated. Slovakia knocked them out, and they targeted Draisaitl. I'm watching the energy and the passion that he played with. He'll be a better player for it. I'm looking at Timmy Stutzler for Germany, going back to Ottawa. He'll be a better player for it. So I think it changes a lot of guys in a positive way, not a negative way. Pierre, thanks so much for the time. As always, a great take on what is always an amazing spectacle, and we can only wait and see. But I got to tell you, every Olympic tournament that comes around now, it's must-see TV. I'm so grateful to do this show with you, Mike. Thanks a lot. Thanks to everybody at Spalumbo's, by the way. But, Mike, thank you very much for having me.
Raw Mike Richards will be right back. Brought to you by Cassock Wealth Management, CIBC Wood Gundy.
We ask famous Italian celebrities where do they eat when they're in Calgary. Absolutely. Forget about it. John Travolta. Actually, sometimes when I come to town, I feel a little bit peckish, but I'm really not sure about all those meats because they're so, fat-laden, and it makes me feel gross. Al Pacino. What a set of meatballs on that guy. It's Spalumbo's Deli in Inglewood, 1308 9th Ave Southeast. Spalumbo's, what's the matter for you? He's going to hate that. For over 40 years, Calgarians have trusted DKI Calgary when disaster strikes. From fires and floods to legendary hailstorms, our all-star team delivers rapid response and proven restoration excellence to residential and commercial customers. As the premier restoration provider in Calgary and Southern Alberta, we're the partner families, businesses, insurers, and property managers count on. When the unexpected happens, trust experience. Trust DKI Calgary, restoring homes, businesses, and peace of mind for more than 4 decades.
This is the Raw Mike Richards Show, brought to you by Cassock Wealth Management, CIBC Wood Gundy, on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
Oh, yes, it is. Raw Mike Richards right here on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Coming up, we're going to talk to our good friend Paul Romanuk, international hockey. This is what he basically voiced for this country for years and years. Has a lot of great stories, and it has provided some great entertainment. So we're certainly going to talk to him. We're also going to hear from, occasionally Ozzy Osbourne has called us about the Olympics. I could never really figure out what he's saying. And it's remarkable, as people mention more than once, you have a lot of people who phone the show who are dead. That is true. We are very popular with the dead. And so we'll get his take on apparently the IOC, who he's not a fan of, but a fan of Gretzky, who you saw and continue to see over, every time they get a shot of the great one, they do. And also a reminder to our good friends at GameSense, depending on what you're playing, I would think, there will be a lot of people on Team Canada to win. According to FanDuel, I think they're a 177, and courtesy, once again, of this segment, GameSense. Go to GameSenseAB.ca. That's the website if you need a little information and sort of some I would say, balance in what you do when it comes to gaming, because they're really good at it. They have a lot of great information. So once again, that's GameSenseAB.ca, looking at some of the futures as I see in the NBA. Now I'm going to go decimal once again because it's kind of the only thing I understand. Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA, the future right now, they're a 2.3, so a 230 to win the whole thing, which maybe isn't a huge surprise. However, number 2 are the Denver Nuggets at a 6.5. That's the discrepancy so far. I mean, if you're looking at the futures in terms of the odds makers, they're not seeing it very close. San Antonio is 13 times your money. So not a whole bunch of respect there, but in terms of kind of the weirdness, they got the Knicks next at 14, followed by the Celtics. If we ever do see Jason Tatum at some point, I don't know. The Cleveland Cavaliers are 14 times your money. And talk about disrespect, the Pistons, who have played awfully well. Cade Cunningham, they've been fun to watch. 15 times your money. If you want to put it out there, a nice return on a team that's played very, very well. If you're looking for ROI in gambling, I suppose that's it. Once again, we said that sometimes Ozzy does give us a call. I don't understand everything that he says, and mostly because he, is dead. So how's he feel about the IOC, the Winter Olympics? Ozzy?
Oh, tell me this Hammerhands is running the show. I mean, it might as well have called him Michael Corleone, you know what I mean?
Good one.
I mean, it's an absolute joke. I mean, it's not like they have to report to anyone. They just make all their own rules and they just do whatever they want. Just a second.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
I'm on the phone, Mike Richards in the morning, Sharon. I know it's in Calgary. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem, Ozzy. I was really surprised because I know you knew Wayne Gretzky because of that whole Hollywood thing, and I guess he's going to get bugged again when...
I have a lot of respect for people that party. I partied with him in Los Angeles when he played for the Kings back in the day. It was one thing is for sure. I mean, I've never met anyone, a professional athlete, I've met a lot of them in my time. Never met anyone so cordial and courteous and really, I mean, a top-notch ambassador for all the sports. I mean, what do you want, Kelly?
Uh-oh.
Get out of the Dunkin' Donuts, you fat pig! That's right.
Oh, I understood that you probably slimmed down, but then again, maybe at that point when we got the call, he was still alive. We're going to talk to our great friend, Paul Romanek, next.
Raw Mike Richards will be right back. Brought to you by Cassock Wealth Management, CIBC Wood Gundy.
Your financial future deserves personalized support. At Cassock Wealth Management with CIBC Wood Gundy, we use a data-driven approach that takes the emotion out of investing to help you stay on track towards reaching your goals. Whether you're growing your portfolio, planning for retirement, or preserving your legacy, our experienced team can provide you with the customized solutions and trusted guidance you need to succeed. Call us at 403-508-3230 or visit our website, www.CassockWealthManagement.com.
Brought to you by Milan Cassock, investment advisor with CIBC Wood Gundy. CIBC Wood Gundy is a division of CIBC World Markets Inc., a subsidiary of CIBC.
For over 40 years, Calgarians have trusted DKI Calgary when disaster strikes. From fires and floods to legendary hailstorms, our all-star team delivers rapid response and proven restoration excellence to residential and commercial customers. As the premier restoration provider in Calgary and Southern Alberta, we're the partner families, businesses, insurers, and property managers count on. When the unexpected happens, trust experience. Trust DKI Calgary, restoring homes, businesses, and peace of mind for more than 4 decades.
This is the Raw Mike Richards Show, brought to you by Cassock Wealth Management, CIBC Wood Gundy, on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
Well, every time I think that maybe, have I lost the deeper interest in hockey, because quite frankly, on a Tuesday night, it goes, hey, you're going to watch that Utah something game? The Senators and the Utah, whatever they're called. I think I'm going to catch up on Landman. Like there's a time where I'm like, as I grow older, is it only certain teams? And then it comes back to international hockey. So I have to go to our great friend, Paul Romanek, Romy as we know him, and say, buddy, just watching international hockey and watching that Czechia game, it all comes back. It's like 1972 all over again. I'm in the fetal position, sucking my thumb, saying, please God, when they were losing. That is entertainment. And I don't know if there's another venue like Olympic and international sports that provides this kind of entertainment where it seems to mean so much.
Well, there's not, I think, is the short answer. And, when you get into an Olympic tournament like this or a big international tournament, even, in different sports, obviously, World Cup of football, which for me is the greatest sporting event in the world. It transcends sports is the phrase I always use, right? I mean, there's the hardcore sports fan, the hardcore hockey fan. Yeah, you've got them. But when you have casual sports fans or casual fans of the sport, in this case, hockey, where there's an Olympic medal on the line, the TV numbers off the chart. And the reason for that is because you have people watching who aren't normally sports fans. And that's the magic of international sports. And that's why people get so into it.
And you bring up another point too, when you talk about World Cup soccer, which is pretty much not only in the world of sports, but the biggest event that we have in this world, certainly that's televised. Now that Canada, and of course, because they're hosting, that's one thing, but with the sort of the program now crossing into a level of football that we have never seen, I think now Canadians are kind of understanding what it's like to be invited to the party. But it also is that dividing line. I said, in North America, we are beholden to the club sport. So the club team that you're regionally the biggest fan of, and people say, well, it's the same all over the world. And even if you're an Arsenal fan or if you're a Chelsea fan, or if you're go through the line, Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, the World Cup still is a checkmate to your emotions. Like, I mean, if you want the three lions to win a World Cup and you're a British soccer fan, regardless of who you support, whether it's Liverpool, again, whether it's nothing quite equals the emotion of world tournament as opposed to club tournament, where I think in North America, even still, it's the other way around, because World Cup of hockey, it never resonated. It was very difficult. And because you did it for years, where, as we joke, it's Azerbaijan versus Morocco in Pool F. And now losing the will to live. And I think those days are gone. Because the world plays, I'm looking even the skills of Team France. I'm like, yeah, eventually they're going to get rolled, but they can skate. They've got hands. The goalies play the angles properly. The equipment doesn't look weird. This has become more of a world sport than when you and I were growing up, for instance, 70s and 80s, where teams were getting pumped 14-0. I think those days are gone.
There's no better example, Mike, for guys of our vintage than our good old misbehaving neighbors to the south. When international hockey best-on-best tournaments sort of started when we were kids. I think of the first one really was that 1976 Canada Cup that took place, and the U.S. was there. It was the U.S. and what was then the Soviet Union, the Finns, the Swedes, and the Czechs, right, were there. But the United States had a team there, and they weren't very good. And the United States wasn't really a huge factor in international hockey for many, many years. Now they are, it's not even arguable, on any day they could beat Canada. The two big teams in the men's ice hockey tournament at the Olympics, it's the U.S. and Canada. Those are the teams everybody's talking about. Swedes are still great, Finns are still good, et cetera, et cetera. But the growth of the sport in the U.S. It's incredible to think of how much it has grown and the skill level and so on. And I could go down the list. I used to talk about this when I was a hockey play-by-play announcer, but if you'd have told me in the mid-'70s that one day the state of California would be a hockey hotbed in the United States, which it is, 3 teams, very successful, good at the gate, widely followed. And even now, when you would go in to do a game as a play-by-play announcer, you have a roster and it usually has a birthplace on there. I go back to a time when you'd look down, you go, oh, look, there's a guy from California. I wonder what the story is there. Now you'll look down at a roster and you won't even blink, and there'll be 3 or 4 guys from California potentially on a roster. So it's grown massively there. And to your point, it has gotten better as well. And look at what the Swiss have done with their program. Just in the last 10, 15 years, are they going to be a gold medal favorite going to the Olympics? No, they're not. But are they going to compete? Could they knock off one of the big boys? You bet they can.
We're in conversation with Paul Romanuk here on Raw Mike Richards, Sportsnet 960, The Fan. It's the other thing that I think is very interesting is in watching it around the world and the coverage. The one thing that we sadly are getting used to is the fact that we don't send our people there. That you don't have boots on the ground in terms of your broadcast. And so I was watching this morning from BBC, and they were doing it was curling. I think it was Great Britain versus the U.S., as a matter of fact. And when they cut away to their hosts, the hosts were there. The set was magnificent. It was right up against a ski hill, and they had the 2 broadcasters talking about the wood fire and so on. But it wasn't virtual. It wasn't AI, and it makes such a difference when you see, especially for the play-by-play guys who aren't calling it off the screen. There really is a difference there. It's a shame that monetarily this is where we are in terms of our broadcast. I mean, just ask Joe Bone and Jim Ralph what they had to go through with the Leafs. But I'm a little saddened when I see what it's like when you juxtapose those being there. And then, sort of back where they're calling it CBC, and there's some derelict at the front who's pouring a bottle out of a brown paper bag. Kind of loses its magic a little bit.
Here we are in front of the CBC Broadcast Center with...
I got spiders on my arm. Calm down there. We're live.
It's just one of those things, right? And anybody who's in the business is going to tell you what it is. It just comes down to economics, unfortunately, and where, it is. I hate using the phrase "it is what it is," but it's applicable here. We don't have the resources to put into broadcasting like they do in the United States. They have 10 times the population and presumably 10 times the ad revenue. I think the sad thing for me is that we don't even do half as good a job as the BBC. The BBC, which I was lived in the UK for a number of years, and it's funded differently. And without getting into all those dynamics, the bottom line is they have money to spend on things like you talked about. So they actually have a crew there on site hosting it. And I think we've gotten to the point in Canada where we just kind of go, we can't do that. And we don't. And as a Canadian, I think it's really unfortunate. I think people are working really hard and doing the best they can. But yes, it's disheartening when you don't have announcers on site, hosts on site, and a real presence there. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way broadcasting is in this country in 2026.
Now, of course, because of how we broadcast, it's a weekly show. So between now and when the show airs, there's a bunch of things that could or could not happen. We can't speculate on those, but what we can talk about was...
Let's do... So, hold on, Jim. That was an amazing win. It's so great that Canada picked up the gold medal. I can't believe what happened. I mean, everybody expected them to win gold, and you just know.
That's right. Those pieces of garbage. Yeah, you want to pick it up? The greatest performance. I'm so happy for the girls. What? Those stupid, I mean, it really, it's, but again, the emotion of that Czechia game was, watching what Suzuki did. And, the other thing too, that I it almost is surreal. When it goes to 3-on-3, and I look at that Canadian lineup, it's for almost every single country. You're like, okay, we can do whatever we want, but it just can't go to overtime because we can't do 3-on-3. It almost seems grossly unfair. But Marner, which of course another face wash for all Leaf fans, of course he does what he does to get them to move on. But credit to Czechia and what they did. Just again gets back to the point. But you have been there when it's both tremendously exciting as an announcer, thus some very memorable calls, and one in particular that's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. But it's still, I think, and you certainly were very much a very fair announcer, but it's not like you didn't have emotion to it. There's got to be memories where it doesn't happen, the disaster happens, that it does lose.
Oh, sure.
I got to think that's a very difficult place for you to be.
Well, you know what though, and I can say this, hand on heart, if somebody can go back and find where there was a big goal called in an international hockey game, even if Canada didn't get it, and I didn't give it what sounded like an enthusiastic call, then please flag that up for me, because something and what people want changes. And I think just because of the partisan world that we live in, I think what a lot of viewers want now is they want a homer. No matter what they're watching, they want a homer for their team. They want Joe Bo and Holy Mackinac if they're a Leafs fan. They want, we were robbed if you're doing international hockey. The way I was taught and what I tried to do was, if you're doing a national broadcast, which is what I did with TSN and with CBC and international hockey with TSN for all those years, and with Eurosport when I lived in the UK, is you need to be objective. You need to have an objective call. And I'll give you a great example. The World Junior Hockey Championship in Winnipeg in 1999. So it was the 98-99 tournament. And Canada were playing Russia, I believe it was, in the semifinal, or might have even been in the final. It was a tremendous game. Roberto Luongo was Canada's goalie in that game. One of the best individual goaltending performances I've ever seen in my life to this day. Russia won that game in overtime. And I didn't go, oh, and the Russians score. It was, he scores, big goal, the Russians, because it's a big moment. And in my view, you owe that to the moment. Somebody watching. And I knew when I was doing all those World Junior games, I did the World Junior Championship for, I think 11 years in Canada and another 4 or 5 years on Eurosport in Europe. I did the World Hockey Championship for ages. I did the Spengler Cup for 11 years. So a lot of international stuff. And I know that when the game was being broadcast in Canada, 99% of my audience were cheering for Canada. I was cheering for Canada. But I think as a professional broadcaster at the level that I aspired to be at, you have to give an objective call. And that means even if the other guys score, it's a big goal. It's a goal that's won an NHL game, a playoff game, or an international game, and you owe that to the moment, whether you're the team you wanted to win scored or not, right? And yeah, I did lots of games where Canada didn't get the win, and I was hoping they did. But you've in my view, everybody's different, but that's how I tried to approach it. I think that to be a network broadcaster, it's one thing if you're a local guy. If you're a local guy, right, it's a little bit of a different kettle of fish. But not least of which most local broadcasters are paid or selected by the team. So there you go. National broadcasters are not. And the guys who were really good at it, Danny Gallivan, Bill Hewitt, Bob Cole in his day, Jim Hewson, you got a neutral call. And that's, people will argue otherwise. You had, you had you were always going to get the lunkheads and the mouth breathers who were like, oh, Jim Hewson hates the Leafs. No, he didn't. I can tell you for a fact, Jim Hewson couldn't have cared less whether the Leafs won or not. What Jim Hewson was about, which is what I was about, was I want a good quality broadcast. That's what I was the biggest fan of, not who won or lost the game. And it was the same in international hockey for me.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask the one thing, because most of us aren't going to have the chance to be, broadcasting a game of size in a foreign country. And you would assume, because you're in the broadcast booth, because after a while, a gondola or a place, a venue, all feels and looks the same. But when you look back on all those countries, all those venues, is there one or two that stand out and you go, you know what, this was a magnificent experience. It was different than the others, either because of the people, because of the city, or those you look back fondly and said, well, I really enjoyed my time in X?
Yeah, like a bunch of them. The big thing for me is I did international hockey, a lot of it, and I did quite a bit of NHL hockey as well. It was a privilege to do games in the best league in the world on a regular basis, the NHL. But if you're talking about memories of the type that I think you're referring to, where you go, wow, that was really memorable. Then I remember almost all of the international tournaments because you're there for a couple of weeks or 2.5, 3 weeks. So you get to know the place a little bit, and it's somewhere different. It's, it's Bern, Switzerland. It's, it's Moscow. It's different cities, international cities, and it has a different feel to it because it's international sports as opposed to Tuesday in Columbus. Hooray. Right. Nothing against the good people of Columbus, but if I never go to Columbus or Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or Tampa ever again, I won't feel shortchanged. What you remember, or what I remember, are those experiences in cities like, Skellefteå in northern Sweden for New Year's Eve in 1999, when the millennium clicked over from the 90s to the 2000s. Those are the things that you remember. The different, time spent in Helsinki, and the Russian restaurant that you found, because of course it's so close to Russia, and you're in there, and just it's different. It's much, much more memorable than your average North American city for me.
Yeah, there's been, I said, obviously some great moments. The time I spent in Ufa, which was initially really difficult, and the language barrier was enormous of almost any place I'd ever been. By the end of it, you realize, quite frankly, that people are people. And once you kind of figured out a middle ground, I'm like, man, it's just, not to get off on the political rant, but, at some point when you meet someone in their hometown and they invite you over for food, or you go out for a drink, you're like, we're not that dissimilar. Maybe it's Red Deer, maybe it's Uxbridge, maybe it's Sydney, Nova Scotia, but I got to tell you, people really aren't that different, Romy. They're not.
Nope. They want to have enough money that they can live a good life. They want to be able to go out and have some fun with their friends and loved ones, and they want to have something that keeps them busy and makes them feel as though they have purpose. And you're so right. And most people like to talk about sports as well. That was certainly my finding. Or if we could just do something about some of the psychopaths who are running the world, maybe we could get things back on track, and we could convey that message out to everybody, because it's a good one.
Well, I keep telling people Canada's doing such a terrible job, such an awful job. They really have been. And the ice hockey team, and Gretzky's a really good friend of mine. He's got a little ways to it. He likes being tickled. I don't know if people know that, but he's a really great guy.
Okay, Romy, thank you so much for joining us here today. As you know, pal, always a pleasure. Love to catch up, and we'll do it again sometime.
My pleasure, anytime. And by the way, they're still looking for you to settle that bar tab in Ufa. That's what I hear.
Raw Mike Richards will be right back. Brought to you by Cassock Wealth Management, CIBC Wood Gundy.
Whoa, I gotta put some money on the game tonight. We hit our monthly budget. Whoa, how did you get in here? I'm you, the responsible you. We're right. We'll play another time. Sounds more like us.
If you gamble, use your game sense. Visit GameSenseAB.ca.
For over 40 years, Calgarians have trusted DKI Calgary when disaster strikes. From fires and floods to legendary hailstorms, our all-star team delivers rapid response and proven restoration excellence to residential and commercial customers. As the premier restoration provider in Calgary and Southern Alberta, we're the partner families, businesses, insurers, and property managers count on. When the unexpected happens, trust experience. Trust DKI Calgary, restoring homes, businesses, and peace of mind for more than 4 decades.
This is the Raw Mike Richards Show, brought to you by Cassock Wealth Management, CIBC Wood Gundy, on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
Huge thanks to our good friend Paul Romanek, reminiscing about some great moments in international hockey, and hopefully we're going to see some more once again at the time of this recording. Don't know the outcome, so really hoping that we get maybe. Do you want less dramatics? Because there's so many people, they would just love a blowout. But there is nothing, again, on that main stage to do what these guys have done. We talked earlier, actually, in I think segment number 3 about futures and what the games were actually worth at the time which I find very interesting. Again, this is the time of the recording. Once again, when we talk gaming, we talk with our good friends from GameSense. So that's GameSenseAB.ca. That's the website. And they're there once again to support if you need information, even how to budget to play the games that you want to play. There's a lot of information there. Once again, that's GameSenseAB.ca. And for instance, the men's hockey after the quarterfinal, the future for them to win the gold medal was a 1-8-3. But even maybe more shockingly, it was like only a 1-2 for the American women, and it was almost 4 times your money. I think it was a 4-2-0 for our Canadian women. So how did you make out on that one? The other thing to mention when we talk about futures is, and this number actually comes from FanDuel, when it looks at the Stanley Cup, currently right now, the Avalanche are 3-2-0. So that's the top team in terms of where they see those that win the Stanley Cup. So the Avalanche at a 3-2. Second is Tampa Bay at a 6. The Hurricanes are an 8.50, and the Knights are a 10. So generally, when we talk about futures, the real value is obviously before the season starts. That's where you're going to get your biggest dollar figure. Or you go another route. That is, who is a dark horse? Is it that obvious, or are we really that sure the Avalanche are that odds-on favorite to win a Stanley Cup? Because almost anybody else that you pick is worth money. For instance, the Oilers are 12 times your money if you think they can make it through. And of course, here in Calgary, nobody's hoping for that. I'd like to thank everybody who joined us here this morning. Pierre McGuire was just sensational as always on Two Man Advantage, brought to you by Spilombo's Deli. Did just such a great job as he always does. And Paul Romanek, as I mentioned beforehand, who has called many, many, many games and brought the experience. And of course, the revelation, that's not a huge one, but because the tightening of dollars, we don't actually get to see a lot of the broadcast teams in Italy, as they would say, boots on the ground, which is a real shame, because I think you do miss something. And I would miss, it would be great to see Pierre there, or a lot of our colleagues that, and over the years, like guys like my co-host Dave Bastel, who's done, I think he's done like 4 Olympics. But that no longer seems to be the case. And I think you do lose a little something. I don't know, quite frankly, though. I think the reality is, did it come back? And if it's dollars and cents, I kind of doubt it. Thanks for joining me here this morning. It's fun each and every week. And remember, you can catch this on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, in which you get to see the show, because basically we designed this now to be a television show. Boy, the gifts just keep on coming, don't they? We'll see you next week.
Na 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 na. Hey, hey, hey. Adios.
The Rob Mike Richards Show. Executive producer, Ron Tarrant. For sponsorship inquiries, contact Pure Production at live.ca. Catch up on previous episodes and stream The Rob Mike Richards Show now, wherever you get your podcasts.
For over 40 years, Calgarians have trusted DKI Calgary when disaster strikes. From fires and floods to legendary hailstorms, our all-star team delivers rapid response and proven restoration excellence to residential and commercial customers. As the premier restoration provider in Calgary and Southern Alberta, we're the partner families, businesses, insurers, and property managers count on. When the unexpected happens, trust experience. Trust DKI Calgary, restoring homes, businesses, and peace of mind for more than 4 decades.
Every once in a while, I don't mind a sarnie. Know what I mean? A sandwich with Italian salami. I go see my good friend Tony. He owns Spilombo's. 13089 9th Ave Southeast, to be precise. I say, oi, Tony, how about one of them salami deals? And he says, I don't think so. You never paid for the last one. And I said, I don't recall that. And he says, well, I do. Okay, I says, I'll be back, but I'll be watching. I'm always watching.
Spilombo's, fine foods and deli, 1308 9th Ave Southeast. Fun for the whole family.
Your financial future deserves personalized support. At Cassock Wealth Management with CIBC Wood Gundy, we use a data-driven approach that takes the emotion out of investing to help you stay on track towards reaching your goals. Whether you're growing your portfolio, planning for retirement, or preserving your legacy, our experienced team can provide you with the customized solutions and trusted guidance you need to succeed. Call us at 403-508-3230 or visit our website, www.cassicwealthmanagement.com.
Brought to you by Milan Kasich, investment advisor with CIBC Wood Gundy. CIBC Wood Gundy is a division of CIBC World Markets Inc., a subsidiary of CIBC.
What can you do to defend your community from devastating wildfires like Jasper? Make it rain. Introducing the mobile Rainstream Tower, giving you the power to create rain when and where you need it, in minutes. Each mobile tower can soak an area of up to 10 football fields in size, creating a wall of water, protecting lives, homes, and the environment. Rainstream. We make it rain.